Hello and welcome. This is Patty Azzarello, and welcome to the webinar on managing your own performance. Nobody cares about your career as much as you do. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is how do we think about managing our own performance, because we're the ones who care the most about what happens in our own careers. So a quick introduction for those of you who are new here. I'm Patty Azzarello, and I, like everyone, started my career and built my career up from entry-level positions at the bottom and ultimately became a business executive, general manager, CEO. I'm now an author and a speaker. And today in my company, Azzarello Group, I advise organizations and executives on topics of strategy and leadership. But I want to talk a moment about why I do these webinars. I personally, in building my own career, had a lot of help along the way, and it really helped. And so I believe that all people who want to get ahead in their careers should have access to all the secrets and support that will help them. And so these webinars are part of a program I call my Executive Mentoring Group, where I set out to share all the secrets of what works, of how executives think, of what gets you stuck, and how to overcome the challenges. So each month I introduce a new topic, and in that topic, I deliver to members of the group doable, practical insights to make progress and move your career forward, along with tools, guides, structure, and support to put those ideas into action. So today's webinar that we're participating in right now, this live broadcast, there's a webinar like this each month, which is free to the public. And the webinar of this replay, the replay of this webinar will be available for 1 month after today. The Executive Playbook is something that I offer to members of the program, and the Executive Playbook helps you put the ideas that we're going to talk about today into action in your own career. There's more content, there's a guided action plan, members get ongoing access, and a lot more stuff. I can talk about that later, as well as live coaching with me, which is part of the Executive Mentoring Group. And so as we go through this topic, if you are interested, if you're not a member and you're interested in getting access to this playbook, you'll be able to get this playbook for free. And I'll tell you about how that works a little bit later on. So before jumping into our topic, I like to set the context of where the topic fits in the success model that I describe in my book, Rise, of Do Better, Look Better, and Connect Better. And so I have this under the Do Better category, but really there are elements of performance that relate to all three of these things. So Do Better is absolutely about adding more value, being more effective, having more business impact. But part of our performance and managing our own performance also falls into the Look Better category, because we can't be invisible. If you have high performance and nobody sees it, it doesn't get you anywhere. And likewise with Connect Better. The most successful people are the ones who get the most help. And if you want to continually increase and upgrade your performance and deliver more value, you are going to be much better off if you are getting help from a network of supporters that you are investing in building that network. So we're going to touch on some of all of these three topics today. So what we'll talk about is, how do we, even in the beginning, think about setting the right bar to achieve the right performance goals? What does high performance look like? How do we think about that? How do we set that bar? And so we'll talk about maximizing your performance, your professional development, and your career. We'll talk about how to choose the right work and the right projects. I'll share with you a critical performance checklist that is really helpful to consult on a regular basis to see how you're doing, the connections and support you need to meet your goals, and how to drive performance development and pay conversations. So as I was putting together the information for this, I realized that there was a lot of content here. So I've actually split it into 2 playbooks and 2 different webinars. So today, this webinar, this playbook, is about managing your own performance. And it's about what you give your company and how you are seen. And understanding what your company values, making sure you're adding enough value and creating visibility for that value, and how the company recognizes and pays you. But there's another element to performance that I think it's important that we consider. And so next month, the webinar and the playbook will be on more energy and less stress. And it's about, what does your work need to give to you? And how does your work need to fit into your life? And we'll talk about building energy and motivation and reducing stress. Because if you're going to operate at a high level of performance, like we're going to talk about today, you cannot do that every minute of your life. At some point, you need to rest and recover from that high performance, and you need to manage your energy. So these 2 topics go together, and today we're going to be focused on this first one at the top, about performing at a high level and managing your own performance. So again, no one cares about your career more than you do. You are in the best position to manage your own performance. And I think it's really important to think about how we can each own a lasting development process for ourselves, because I don't think you can count on forces outside of yourself to make sure this happens. And this is one of the really abrupt changes that happens when we leave school and we enter the workforce. Because if you think about it, when you start school, you are given a curriculum that is finger painting and singing songs and getting along with others. And if you pass that curriculum, you graduate to the next year where you are counting and learning numbers and letters. And then the next year you're learning to read and you're starting to do math. And every year that you complete the work, the next year you are presented with an advanced, more challenging curriculum. And this happens all through grammar school. This happens through high school. This happens through university. All you need to do is show up and you get presented with the work that needs to be done. And if you do that work, you're going to advance to the next level. As soon as you step out of the education system and into the workforce, no one will ever do that for you again. Right? You're given a job description that kind of feels like your curriculum. It's what you're being asked to do. It's what you're being asked to work on and maybe even learn about. But there's no guarantee that anyone is going to give you a progressively more challenging job description each year. And so I've seen people just get stuck in those first jobs that they get because they did not choose to manage their own performance and give themselves a progressively more challenging curriculum each year. So it's up to you. You own your development. So it's important to create a plan for yourself, set performance goals, set development goals, set career goals, and also set goals for fun things and goals that you want in your life. And then that becomes your outline of what you want to manage your performance to. And there's a really, I can't really overstate the importance of building some time into your schedule to work on your performance and development, because it's just too easy to be busy and to just say, I'm too busy, I don't have time to do this. But you have to remember that busyness is not necessarily getting you ahead. It's keeping you busy doing the job you're doing today. So it's really important to schedule time for building your performance plan and thinking about it. The other thing that is really helpful when you think about your career and managing your performance in your career is building the right kind of support. So I talk a lot about mentors and sponsorship. Another thing that can be super useful and is something that I've done throughout my whole career is to always have a career partner or a small group where once a quarter or twice a year you meet, you go out to dinner and you talk about what's happening in your career and you share goals and you talk about it together. And I find that having that supportive environment and people who are trying to do the same thing in building their careers can be a super helpful thing. Don't stay too busy for years and not think about this. If you want to advance, make sure that you are spending some time on this and not just allowing yourself to stay so busy, because that's how you get stuck and that's how you get surprised. And always remember that your company can absorb an unlimited amount of work from you without caring a lot about you. And so you need to care about your own performance, and you need to make sure to make time so that you're not staying too busy. So a big part of our performance is choosing the right work. I already mentioned this idea of making sure that you are advancing yourself by you are choosing more difficult, more challenging, more advanced work over time so that you can continue to develop yourself. But I want to share a couple of important ideas here. So obviously, what I'm suggesting that you do is extra stuff over and above what's in your job description. And so it's important, if you are overwhelmed by your current job, you need to get on top of that. And you can't stay overwhelmed by your current job for too long, because you have to make room to take on the new things that are going to serve your long-term career goals. It's always a short-term, long-term balance in anything, but the same thing is true for your career. You got to do a great job at your current job, but you got to get on top of it so it doesn't burn up all your time and energy, and then have the room to do things that are going to serve your career. So don't be limited by the confines, by the boundaries of your job description. The fundamental thing in career development is not going to conferences or reading books. The fundamental thing that you need to do in your career development is to get the experience that you need to get the job you want. And so I talk about, there's a chapter in my book, Rise, on this idea that I call the experience paradox. And the experience paradox says that you can't get the job without the experience, but you can get the experience before you get the job. And this is how you give yourself that progressively advancing curriculum, is you set a goal for the kind of job you want, and then you go out and you find work and projects that are going to be getting you that experience. So find those projects and go after them. Know your strengths, know what gives you energy, know where you want to end up, and volunteer for the work that's going to give you the right experiences. This was how I advanced my career, is I knew from early on that I wanted to be a general manager. So I would hang out with general managers as much as I could. I'd understand their job and I would take on projects for them. And so by the time I interviewed for the first general manager position that I got, people's comments were, wow, Patty, you don't have general manager as a title, but you've got a lot of general management experience. Great, right? That's I did that on purpose. And that's what I mean by the experience paradox and the things we can do to advance our own career. So I want to talk about a trap that I see people falling into, and it can really set you back. And it's this idea of office housework and making sure that you are not doing too much office housework compared to your peers. So things like making the boss look good, organizing the presentations, making consistent templates, driving a planning process for the team. These are things that you can burn up a huge amount of time doing. While it's good to make your boss look good, you got to make sure you're doing it on something he cares about or she cares about. I was talking to one client who was saying that her boss did not have a marketing plan at all for the whole department, and she represented one piece of the department, and she was a good planner. And she said, so after I finish the marketing plan for my department, I think I'm going to help my boss build a marketing plan for the whole organization. And I caught her out and I said, you got to be really careful. If he doesn't care, if he's not doing it and he doesn't care enough, you're doing office housework. You're doing everybody's job to create a marketing plan that's going to serve everyone, but it's not something your boss is asking for. So it is important to create efficiencies and processes and things that help, but make sure that it's helping you advance your career and it's helping you perform better, and that you're not just getting stuck doing too much of the office housework. And if it is you, think about how busy and tired is it making you? How much time does it take away from other things where you're adding core business value? And really consider how much of it are your peers doing. And if it's you got to be careful, because you have to make sure you are adding enough value and not doing more than your fair share of this busy work of making everything nice for the organization. So here's something I want to share very briefly with you today, and I'm going to talk about this again in next month's webinar. But the secret of success here, I have found this in my own life. I have found this in talking with hundreds of people over the past years who have gotten themselves to a position where they feel successful at work and feel great about it. And it's to find this intersection of what you are good at, what you're naturally good at, what you enjoy doing, and what your company values. And if you can connect those dots and find work that satisfies the intersection of all three of these things, that is going to put you in a position to be truly a high performer and really be recognized as a high performer. So there's more about this in the executive playbook, and there's exercises for how to define your personal playbook of how you work at your best and how to find this intersection in your own career. So still on this topic of choosing the right work and doing the right work, I think it's also really important to understand that you have an opportunity to tune the content of your job. Your job description is true for a moment in time, and then the world changes. And as the world changes, you need to be always looking at your job description as what's going to add the most value in the future. But if you look at it with an eye toward that intersection of what's going to add the most value and what's the best work for me to be doing, what do I enjoy the most, what am I the best at, and renegotiate the contents of your performance objectives to put yourself in a position to be doing more of the kind of work that serves you well. Long term, think about how you can really redefine and reinvent your job to serve you better. This may be done by getting a different job or simply by continuing to renegotiate the content of the job that you already have. If you're a program manager that loves the data and the process Maybe you want to volunteer for more programs that are rich in detail and process, and maybe even create a structure of programs in your company and be a program manager of program managers and use your structural organization stuff. If you're a program manager that is really good and loves the part about relating to people and solving political problems and finesse and negotiation, get more of that work. And you can keep the job title as program manager, but choose the content, choose the right kind of work that's really going to suit you the best over time. And just recognize that you're allowed to do this, and don't count on anyone to do it for you. Nobody knows who you are more than you, and nobody cares about what happens to you and what you do in your career more than you do. So keep the value contract with your company high, but at the same time, think about getting more of the stuff that you like to do into your job. Changing gears a little bit. If you want to be recognized as a high performer, it's really critical that you show the value of your work. And part of it is delivering excellent work. That's always where it starts. I never, ever, ever recommend going on a publicity campaign independent of excellent results. So you got to deliver. But then you have to make sure that you communicate the value of what you deliver and make sure the value is seen. So do great work, then share what you learned. Share the business benefit about what you did. It's not about bragging. It's you've done something valuable, and understand who all of the stakeholders or users of that work is, and share that value with them. Share what you learned, share the benefit that they're getting. Have those conversations. It's so important to always communicate with stakeholders and to communicate with downstream users. For stakeholders, ask for feedback and test relevance. One of my favorite stories here was a new CFO who saw that his organization was getting chewed up by the quarterly board report. It was a 36-page report, and it just took everybody out of the work stream for weeks each quarter. So he went to the board and he said, "Do you like this 36-page report?" And they said, "No, we don't like it." And he said, "Let's create a new report that you will like." And they worked together and they created a 9-page report, and it didn't chew up his organization anymore. That's delivering value. And that conversation has nothing to do with bragging or publicity, but that conversation is creating positive visibility for what you are doing with your stakeholders. Communicate with downstream users. This is another example. Every time I have taken over a marketing organizations are famous for delivering a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff particularly that's used to enable salespeople. So I would collect all of the sales enablement tools, and let's say it was 40 things. And then I would go ask salespeople all over the world, which of these 40 things are you using? And they would say 8 of them. And then I'd go back to my marketing department and say, stop these 32. Let's do an even better job on these 8. And that's the sort of thing that you don't have to wait for an executive to come in and do that. You should be testing what you're producing with your downstream users and making sure that it is useful and they're using it for its intended purpose, and ask for feedback and use that not only to improve the work product, but the conversation in itself builds credibility and gives you positive visibility for the value that you're delivering. Never just deliver value and move on to the next thing without communicating. Another aspect of managing our own performance is just making sure that we have support to grow. It's really hard to get all of the knowledge and growth that you need just left to your own devices. And the most successful people are the ones who are getting the most help. Some people ask me, Patty, do you have any, personality traits that you were lucky enough to have that you think played a role in your success? And the first one that always comes to mind is that I was very willing to ask for and accept help. And I got a lot of help. And for me, that changed the world. And so make sure you don't try and go it alone. So think about mentors and sponsors. There's another whole playbook specifically on mentors and sponsorship in the Executive Mentoring Group. But always think about building your network, creating an extra team of people that are inclined to help you. That's what successful people do. And while you're at it, make sure you are also being a mentor to others. Being a mentor to others is a key sign of someone who is a high performer. And people who get recognized as high performers, mentoring is often a component of that. So it's so important to see getting help as a strength and an advantage, not something that makes you less credible or weak, but it is a strength and it is an advantage because it increases what I refer to as your fund of knowledge. Your fund of knowledge is made up of what you can learn on your own, what you can read, learn, research on your own, plus what you can learn from others and what you can learn from experts. If you consider the goal of making your fund of knowledge as big as possible, that is going to create an enormous boost in your performance. Where if you just have a tendency to just go off and learn on your own, you're always going to learn less than when you incorporate the expertise of others. So this is a critical performance checklist, and I'm not going to go through this point by point today, but in terms of do better, it's just challenging yourself of, am I working on the right things that have enough impact, and am I growing? Am I developing? Look better is about how you show up to the world and how are you communicating effectively enough with your team and your various stakeholders. And connect better are some checklist points to make sure that you are building the network and getting the support and sponsorship that you need to continually increase your performance and push your career forward. So there's more in the executive playbook. This checklist is in there and worksheets for prioritizing which of these things you want to push yourself forward on now, later, and in the future. I'm not suggesting you need to do all of these all at the same time, but it's really handy to have a checklist that helps you assess and see where you are. One of the things I think is so just important to share is the value of driving your performance conversations yourself. Remember, nobody cares as much as you do. And if you have a boss that is really focused on your development, on your performance, on having these conversations, good for you. You are lucky and you are in the minority. Most people who are moving ahead are really taking responsibility to drive these kinds of conversations themselves. So performance conversations, I think it's really important that 1 to 2 times a year, review your performance with your boss. Even if your boss doesn't care, even if your boss is one of those bosses that refuse to have one-on-one meetings with you, you create a document, you document your performance objectives, you document your performance results, and send your boss an email. It's so important that you have that documentation and that you are focused on moving your performance forward. It's really very important to not create an environment or not tolerate an environment where surprises can happen. You and your boss should share and align on goals and expectations. And you should be doing this again, 1 or 2 times a year, and make sure that you both see your performance objectives the same way, you both see where the value is the same way, and you are aligned on where the business is going, how your role might need to change. Because if you never have this conversation, you could be ready, willing, and able to drive change in the business. But without this conversation, if your boss is being pressured to drive change in the business, you may be seen as one of those people who's unwilling to change because there's never been a conversation, right? So these conversations, these performance conversations with your boss are super important to make sure that there are no surprises now and moving forward. And also, it's worth mentioning that it's a cool thing to do to ask your boss for introductions, to ask your boss to help you with introductions to mentors or other networks, or for visibility opportunities. Those things that you need to manage your own performance and push yourself forward, even if your boss isn't proactively doing these things for you, sometimes when you ask, when you create the specific ask and you have a recommendation for what would be helpful, your boss will be super willing to help. So there's also another executive playbook on managing your boss in the executive mentoring group, which has a lot more ideas in it. And in this particular playbook on managing your own performance, I've included the conversation template for how to talk with your boss about performance, role level, expectations, and pay. Which brings me to the last idea here about conversations with your boss is you also should drive the pay conversations. And yes, you need to ask for a raise. It's interesting. In the executive mentoring group, in our last coaching hour call, this idea took up at least half the time. And we strategized and brainstormed on all the different situations and ways to go about having the pay conversation with your boss. But I tell you, you should be the one driving it because nobody cares as much as you do. So connect your conversation to what the business values, establish the value of your role in the company, and tie requests for more money to delivering increased value. So what I mean by that is it's the difference between saying, I worked really hard this past year, I deserve a raise right now, which is less powerful than saying, you know what, I want to set up an agreement with you. I want to set up a contract with you that if in the next year I deliver on these bigger performance objectives, this higher value, if I deliver this higher value, let's agree on what the commensurate value in my pay package will be when I successfully deliver on that. And you get that agreement ahead of time. And then by the time you get to the end of that period, you go back with that agreement and say, here we go. I have done all of these things that we agreed to. So now I need to understand when the associated pay will be done. That's a much more powerful way than trying to think about it right in the moment. And just the other thing that's useful about this conversation is to just remember, you got to get the metrics right. Your company doesn't owe you your pay just for your attendance. It's a contract. It's a work for value contract. And at entry level, it might be a work for time contract. But beyond entry level, you need to be making decisions, being accountable, making improvements, managing teams. It's not simply about the time you spend at work. It's about the value that you are creating. And so if you want more pay, suggest metrics that represent increased value delivered. So again, there's more in this executive playbook and a conversation script about how to talk with your boss about performance objectives, the value of the role, and the pay. So there are some other executive playbooks in the program related to this topic. The next one I already mentioned, that's coming up, More Energy, Less Stress. That's coming up next month. Make sure you're spending your energy in ways that are serving both your career and your happiness in life. There's a really cool playbook about strategically thinking about your career and thinking about what your job needs to give you at various points in your life, whether you're starting out, you're building, you're competing, or you're finishing your career. There's a playbook on standing out, and it's about becoming the obvious choice. When the best opportunities come up, how do you become the obvious choice? And there's one on personal brand tune-up, and then there's a whole playbook on managing your boss and how to manage this important relationship and the conversations about what happens to you in your career. So if you're really interested in this topic of managing your own performance, there's a whole lot of additional supporting material and resources in the Executive Mentoring Group library. So 3 things to take away here. One is be really relentlessly focused on making sure you're doing the right work. Be purposeful about your own performance development and choose and optimize the right work. Don't leave this to chance. Number 2, support. Make sure that you are communicating your value so people know the value you're delivering. You're building your network, you're asking for help, and you're getting support. That's what high performers do. And number 3 is you own the conversation. Own and lead the conversation about your performance, your career, and your pay. So the final thought here is, once again, I've said it, this is probably the 5th time, nobody cares about your career as much as you do. So make sure you're adding value to the business and to your career at the same time, and making sure you're getting support and the right recognition along the way. So I told you about the executive playbook and how you can get the executive playbook. Again, today's webinar is learning the insights from the playbook, and this is available for 1 month. The executive playbook itself, which is available to members, it has a playbook webinar, which is a bit of a deeper dive, more insights and content. There's Q&A, there's conversation about the content in the playbook webinar. Templates, worksheets, script. Members get ongoing access. You have access as long as you're a member to all the webinars and tools. There's streaming video and also MP3 downloads. And there's a guided action plan, which you can follow along with the guided action plan, or it's all there for you to use on your own schedule in a self-paced way. And there's also live coaching with me. So what I mentioned at the beginning is that if you're interested in getting this playbook, you can get this playbook for free, and it's a part of my executive mentoring group. And the way to get this playbook for free is to join by starting a free 30-day trial to the executive mentoring group. And if that's all you need to hear, this is where you can go to get this playbook for free, execmentorgroup.com/trial, and you'll immediately have access to all of the extra stuff and the guided action plan and scripts and MP3 downloads and so forth of this playbook. However, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the program and particularly why I do this. And why I do this is I see people who are struggling in their careers, and it really breaks my heart to see people hating their jobs. And I know it doesn't have to be that way. It can be better. And so I see people, ambitious, talented people who want more, and they're working really, really hard, but not quite getting ahead in the way that they want. They're not being recognized. A lot of people tell me they're simply not seeing opportunities to advance, and they're not enjoying their work enough. and they'd like their work and their life to be more fun, and they'd like to have more meaning in their work. And they're feeling stuck without choices or power, and sometimes financially hostage to a job that they hate. And I just when I see this situation, my heart goes out, because this is painful. And I remember in my own career when I have felt all of these things at different points in my own career. But there is a path, there is a way to make it better. And frankly, companies and managers are not providing enough help on these things. And so that's where this idea of mentoring comes in. So I believe, first and foremost, that all people deserve the significant career advantages that come from having a mentor. And I also believe that when people thrive more at work, the business thrives more. And so I have made it my life's work to operate at this intersection of helping people thrive in business and in their careers, and therefore helping businesses thrive more. And so I've put this work into a couple of books. I've mentioned my book Rise, my book Move, which is focused on organizations. And also this was the core concept in my TED Talk, which was reclaiming humanity at work. How do we make this all better for the humans, all of us as people, and how we show up at work and how we can thrive more and the business will thrive more? And so mentoring has made such an enormous difference in my own career. I personally experienced the benefit of mentoring, and it's what got me to become a GM at such a young age of 33 and a CEO at 38. There's no way I could have done any of that without mentors helping me. And it was kind of funny because I just felt like I was getting told all these secrets. Like I was given warnings against things to avoid. I was given insights about how people thought and worked and how the company worked and understanding where the value was. And I would look around at my colleagues and my peers and think, like, how are you doing anything? Like, how are you even functioning without this secret stash of information that I'm getting from my mentors? And so in my case, it was transformational, that help that I got from mentors. And it enabled me to see and avoid the career risks that would have gotten me stuck. Absolutely. I sidestepped some major issues. And their help, the help of my mentors, allowed me to get my success without sacrificing my soul or turning into a miserable, self-centered jerk. And this was a super important lesson for me, because there's lots of examples of really like aggressive, horrible people who have achieved high levels of business success. But that never fit my personal version of what success should be like. And I had some mentors who were really super powerful business leaders, and they weren't assholes. They were really kind people. And it allowed me to see and understand that that was a possibility, that you could be a highly powerful, successful business person and not be a jerk. And so now in the executive mentoring group, I'm so excited because I'm able to help others get their own breakthroughs and be happier in their life because they can get their breakthroughs on their own terms. And I think that's really, really important. So when I talk about the kind of risks that mentors helped me avoid, they were things like working too hard. Working too hard can get you stuck because it's about value, not about busyness. Being invisible, not understanding how executives think and communicate. Boy, you can get it really wrong really fast with an executive, and that can just put a put your name on a blacklist, working alone without the right support, not having enough influence, or simply letting fear disqualify you. This last one was a big deal for me because every time I made a big jump, I was afraid, and it was my mentors that were telling me, Patty, you can do it. Patty, go for it. And I would have disqualified myself if it wasn't for my mentors pushing me and helping me with my fear and confidence. And so I offer the Executive Mentoring Group to help people, number one, avoid those damaging career traps and risks, and also to simply better understand and define their own career goals. What does success on their terms look like? How to solve problems and overcome obstacles, issues, and difficult people. And sometimes your boss is the difficult person. How to use their unique strengths and personality to thrive in their work. Instead of being defensive and insecure about who you truly are, how do you bring that as a strength into your work? And finally, how to get access to and successfully compete for their desired programs. These are the kinds of things that we work on in the Executive Mentoring Group. And I love this story about Carrie, because Carrie was someone who was working really, really hard, and she was creating great results, but nobody recognized, the company was not recognizing that she was the engine behind these results. They were just absorbing those results, and they didn't even know who she was. And this program helped her realize that she needed to show up in a different way and position the value of that work in a different way. And she got back to me and said, I got 2 pay raises and 2 promotions simply by making her work visible. And from Robert, learning the things that he didn't know existed. And that's how I felt from my mentors, is they were telling me about all the things that I didn't know existed. And it made all the difference in the world. So just an idea of some of the things upcoming in the program. Today, again, is managing your own performance. Next is kind of part 2 of performance, which is about more energy, less stress. Then we're going to talk about authentic networking, and over the next months, marketing and positioning yourself. So an annual membership to the Executive Mentoring Group. It includes live group coaching with me. So you can call into coaching hours, ask your own questions, and get coaching directly from me. It includes 24 executive playbooks, and it includes within those playbooks the action planning tools, template systems, structure, reminders. And I've done a bunch of research online to see how some programs that offer stuff not necessarily related to career, but just offer advice, expertise, programs, templates, those sorts of things. And I've come up with this sort of pricing. But as I mentioned before, I do this program because I really want to help. And so what I offer to you is you can get access to all of this for $269 for a whole year. The wonderful thing about the internet is it allows for enough scale that I can offer this stuff at a much, much lower price. And I'll tell you that maybe half of the people in the program pay for this out of their own pocket, and the other half their company reimburses them. And, very much in line with our managing your own performance, ask your company. Many companies will pay for this program out of their professional development budget. So I got a note from another member, Adrian, and I just loved the way he talked about what he got out of this program. First of all, I was amazed by this, and I've gone to the mentorship meetings, and I'm blown away. You've provided me insight into management, and I learned many things I had no idea about before. You told me how an executive thinks, how a manager should think, strategize, and go about planning the team's work. You really opened my eyes into the senior management world. It's now much more clear for me what I have to do to succeed and make a difference. It is indeed a goldmine of information and knowledge. And when I got that email, that just absolutely made my day, because that's exactly what I'm setting out to offer in this program. So again, if you would like to start a free trial, you can do that. Or if you're ready and you would like to join as an annual member, there is a 23% discount. After the free trial, it's $29 a month, or the annual price offers a 23% discount. So I just want to see if I can quickly show you what's in the program. There's a lot in there, so I'm going to try and be as brief as possible, but there are 24 playbooks in the library, and they are aligned to those risks that I mentioned. So a risk of being too busy and overworked, there are actually 4 playbooks about using time better and being more strategic. The risk of not being recognized, not seeing opportunities, there are again 4 playbooks on the topics of executive presence and standing out. On the risk of not understanding how executives communicate, there's 4 playbooks again on credibility and executive communications. On not having enough influence, there are 4 playbooks on organizational influence, influence in general, virtual and remote team influence, and so forth. Trying to succeed without enough support, there are 4 playbooks on the topics of networking and sponsorship. And then finally, on fear, stress, frustration, and burnout, there are another 4 playbooks on your career, energy, and sanity. And also, as an annual member, you get invited to 2 live group coaching sessions each month. So if you'd like to preview all of the playbooks, if you go to execmentorgroup.com and you scroll down, you'll see all 24, and you can watch little preview videos and get a whole bunch of information if you're interested in seeing the content that's in the program. But what I want to mention is that members see this as a handy reference library. And the point I want to make is you don't need to do all of them. Like, you don't need to work through all 24 playbooks to get your benefit or to get your breakthrough. Consider this as your handy reference library and choose a topic when you need it. And you can listen on the go. You can just, while you're commuting, while you're walking, you can listen on the go to get the insights. And sometimes it's the ideas themselves that create the breakthroughs. And you don't actually have to do any work. You just think about something in a new way. And that's the thing that unlocks your breakthrough. Or if you do want to do a deeper dive, do deeper work on a topic, you can really dive into an individual playbook and download the worksheets and follow the guided action plan and make a specific action plan for yourself. But the idea here is to not try and do all of this. It's to give you the library of the insights that you can access to get the breakthrough that you're looking for. And in the coaching hour, you can ask your own questions, and I always dare people, ask me anything. You know, I dare you, ask me about anything. The coaching hours have been great, and the discussions have been really, really fascinating. So I also want to take a minute to just let you know what's in the free trial, because there's a lot of stuff in here, and I'm really pleased to be able to offer this much stuff for free, because again, it's helpful, and I do this to help. And of course, this is a program with a membership fee, and it's great if you want to become a member. But if you want to take advantage of the free trial, please do. That's why it's there. So in the free trial, you get the current executive playbook, plus there are 2 bonus executive playbooks. And I included these playbooks because these topics are so foundational to career success that I just wanted to share these specific insights with everybody right away. And the first one is on ruthless priorities. And it's about this, such an important thing of you need to be less busy, figure out how to work less but have more impact, be able to say no without disappointing people, add more value, get recognized, defend your time, and feel less stressed and more successful. So the Ruthless Priorities Playbook is included in the free trial. So is the Mastering Executive Communications Playbook, where you learn what executives care about and what they don't care about, and how to get it right, how to hit the mark fast with their executives and don't test their patience, which is so important, how to tune your language to be more relevant, how to organize your delivery to have more impact, and how to build your credibility in each and every conversation with executives. And so you get these 2 bonus playbooks with the Ruthless Priorities Playbook. Even if you cancel your trial, you get to keep the Ruthless Priorities ebook, which has a ton of information in it. And with the Mastering Executive Communications Playbook, you get an actual executive presentation template for how to deliver a 10-slide executive presentation. And those 2 things are yours to keep whether or not you continue the trial. And you will, in the free trial, get an invite to a coaching hour where you can ask your own questions. The other thing I wanted to mention is that our program has an oddity, which on the day of this live webinar, we need to switch over the system and remove last month's playbook and put in this month's playbook. And so if you join and you start the free trial today, you actually get last month's playbook. So you get 4 playbooks if you join today. You won't see this anywhere on the site when you join, because again, it's just this oddity of how the system updates. But if you go to execmentorgroup.com/trial today, you'll end up with 4 playbooks as part of the free trial instead of 3. And cancel at any time. I promise you, my agenda here is not to trick you into a subscription. There is no risk. And if you want to cancel, you can cancel. If you have any trouble canceling, just send us an email and we will cancel for you. I'm doing this because I want you to have these secrets. I want you to have this help and these insights and these tools. And it's not about tricking you into a subscription. So absolutely, there is no risk. You can cancel at any time. So just a quick comment from Liz that the advice is practical, decisive, and direct. And I love this comment from Steve, is that this program creates a permanent improvement because it changes the way you think about your career forever after. And again, this is really speaking to the fact that you don't have to do all the work in all the playbooks. Simply just getting those insights sometime is the thing that creates that forever change. So when you follow that link, you will see this screen and you can make your choice if you want to start a free trial or if you are ready to start an annual membership. And again, if you join today, you get 4 playbooks instead of 3 playbooks. So I will wrap this up there. Again, the link is execmentorgroup.com/trial. And you will either be able to start your trial or join as an annual member. And I would love to welcome you into the group. So I will stop there, and I've talked for almost the whole hour. I've put some new content into the webinar this month, so I didn't quite have the timing on it. But if you've got more time and you have questions, I will change over to Q&A mode, and
Q&A session has started.
Questions. Any questions about anything, about the program, about the topic, or about anything you've got going on? I'm happy to help. There is a question on chat here. How do you keep moving forward regarding the performance conversation when your boss changes each year? With each change, I feel that I have to start over. I'm not getting anywhere close to my career goals. I realize having other sponsors could help, but it really is the ultimate decision of my direct manager. I think my best advice here is to just keep up the documentation, right? So you have performance objectives, you've delivered bigger than those objectives, you had an agreement with your former boss. And if you can put like a history on a timeline, maybe of the past 4 years and how you've consistently exceeded objectives for 4 years, it's a way to tell your new boss, look, I know you just got here, but I need to share this history with you because you're my 4th new boss and my career is kind of taking a hit here and I'd like to ask for your support. I think having the data helps, but also the ability to have that conversation and show that context. A question about the membership. I'm a member since June, but I haven't had a chance to review all the material. Will I get access to all 24 playbooks since I'm a member already? Yes, if you are an annual member, you get everything upfront. If you are a monthly member, you get the first 3 or 4 playbooks immediately, and then your library builds up with a new playbook each month that you keep your membership. Looks like we've got a question online here, so let me see if I can select. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Do you have Shifadin?
Yes, sorry about that. I just wanted to know like how to deal with the manager that is like too busy. So in order like to be able like to set up like the performance discussion that I could talk with her properly.
Yeah, this drives me crazy when managers are too busy to talk to their direct reports. I just think that is such an enormous flaw and such a shame for everyone involved and the business. So what I do in this case is I document everything really clearly, and I document it in a way that is easy to consume. It's not pages of documentation. It might have charts or 1 page or that sort of thing. And if you can't get a meeting to talk about it at all, at least email the document and have that record of that it was documented and that it was emailed, because that is always going to help you. It doesn't get you all the way over the finish line necessarily, but it's always better than not having that. And then if your boss is really challenging on this, I would just try and get a meeting on something else. Like if you can get a 30-minute meeting or a 45-minute meeting on something and then finish quickly and then just drop this performance conversation into the last 10 or 15 minutes, it's better than nothing. It's a shame that sometimes you have to go through this with a manager that doesn't want to talk to you, but those are the techniques that I've used.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another question here on chat. My group is being outsourced and I'm in the middle of interviewing with other companies. I think everything you discuss can be applied in the context of job interviews, but are there any specific insights or considerations to take into account? Yeah, so what I recommend in job interviews as one of the most powerful things you can do is to start doing the job during the interview process. So anything you can do to understand, their competition, the market space, maybe there's like some chaos in a project plan or something, like anything that you can learn. If you can go to the interview with an actual work product that even if they don't hire you, they would find this work product valuable and they might just grab that and say, we're going to use that. That has the benefit of they're kind of getting addicted to your work before they even make the hiring decision, and it really gives you an advantage in the interview process. So anything that you can do to start doing the job before you get the job is a good thing. I have some more advice on this in a blog article that I wrote, and if you search my name, Azzarello blog, the title is something like 2 Keys to Getting the Job You Want. Or if you look on the left column of my blog, there are categories. You might be able to find that article. And if you can't send an email, you can send an email to info@azzarellogroup.com, and I'll find that blog for you. One other question here. Are there any tools, self-assessments you can recommend to identify what my strengths are, what I'm good at? I have a fairly good idea, but sometimes such assessments provide additional insights. Yes, I really like the Strengths Finder 2.0 book. It comes with an assessment. You don't have to buy the book. You can just buy the assessment, and you can get your top strengths. And somebody has put the link that found the article, do these 2 things to win the job you want. So it's in the chat window. Thank you for that. So the Strengths Finder, you can either get your top 5 strengths, or you can get all 34 strengths in order. And I find that assessment to be fantastic. All right, I guess we will wrap it up there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining the webinar today. And again, if you are interested in becoming a member or starting a free trial, the link is execmentorgroup.com/trials. Thanks, everyone. Bye.